At the Paris Olympics, French military forces set up sniper rifles along the Seine, but their target wasn't a terrorist. It was a shark lurking in the river. A massive great white, moving with terrifying speed, weaved through a hail of bullets and got away. As it swam along the riverbed, it accidentally kicked up several unexploded shells left over from World War II. This is the plot of Under Paris, a movie France put together to coincide with the Olympics. The film opens with two boys heading down to the Seine, hoping to make a little cash by fishing junk out of the river. At first, all they pull up is worthless scrap, but on their third try, their magnet suddenly latches onto something with a powerful grip. Thinking they'd struck gold, the two boys hauled their find to the surface, only to freeze in shock. What they'd pulled up was an old artillery shell sitting at the bottom of the river. With a major race scheduled on the water just days away, the boys worried about the safety risk and immediately reported the shell to the police. To their surprise, the officer assigned to the case told reporters this was nothing out of the ordinary. He revealed that he and his colleagues had already pulled hundreds of shells from the river, so there was no reason to panic. But once word got out, a marine biologist named Sophia rushed to the police station. She warned the officers that the real danger wasn't the shells at the bottom of the river. It was a 30-foot shark lurking in the water. 3 years earlier, her research team had encountered the same shark out in the ocean. Hoping to collect data on it, the captain had tried to approach, gently touching its body before taking a sample with a needle. What was supposed to be a routine research procedure went sideways fast. Provoked by the needle, the shark went into a frenzy and turned on the crew. By the time Sophia dove in to help, her teammates were already gone. All that remained beneath the surface was a massive shark gliding slowly through the water. Its head was covered in savage scars, as if it had survived countless brushes with death. The moment it spotted Sophia, the shark went into attack mode and came at her with terrifying speed. Sophia reacted fast, raising a nail gun and firing into its body. But a split second later, the shark's sheer force dragged her down into the deep. In a desperate move, Sophia pulled out a knife, cut through the fishing net tangled around her leg, and barely managed to escape with her life. Now 3 years later, Sophia was stunned to discover that this same shark had traveled thousands of miles and somehow ended up in France. Tracking data confirmed it was hiding in the Seine. Sharks are saltwater creatures and shouldn't be able to survive in fresh water, but given Sophia's credentials as a marine biologist, the police chief agreed to send officers to help her investigate. Before long, they took a speedboat to the area where the shark had been spotted, and 3 divers in scuba gear went in one after another. At first, all they found on the riverbed was scattered junk, but as they searched wider, they started to realize something dangerous was hiding in the Seine. A 10-foot arapaima had been torn apart, and whatever had done it had also mangled a car door, leaving 2 rows of unmistakable bite marks. Then things got worse. The 3 divers thought they caught a glimpse of the massive creature. Not willing to push their luck, they headed straight back to the boat and fired up the sonar. Sure enough, the outline of a shark quickly appeared on screen. Determined to make sure the race could go on safely, Officer Mike suggested to the chief that they close the locks to trap the shark and capture it. But when the mayor got wind of the plan, she shot it down without a second thought. France had already sunk $1.7 billion into hosting the Olympics, and making a huge scene over a single shark would only turn the country into a laughingstock. She insisted the whole situation be handled quietly. No leaks, no panic in the streets. Left with no choice, the team went along with her orders. Sophia had someone pick up a barrel of animal blood, planning to use the scent to lure the shark out, trap it in a huge net, and then hit it with a tranquilizer. But just as they were about to move in, Sophia's assistant showed up with bad news. A group of animal rights activists were planning to take matters into their own hands and try to free the shark. The activists made their way to a set of catacombs near the Seine, planning to use a sonar device to draw the shark inside. When the police caught wind of it, they raced to the scene. This shark had already killed people, and the activists were basically gambling with their lives. But by the time officers arrived at the catacombs, it was too late. The shark had already surfaced near the group's leader, and it wasn't alone. There were 2 sharks, one large and one small. The young woman reached out and gently touched the smaller shark's head, hoping to earn its trust. But before long, the 2 sharks seemed to signal each other and silently sank beneath the surface. Sophia saw exactly what that meant and shouted for the young woman to get out of the water, since it was a classic sign that the sharks were about to attack. Mike didn't hesitate either. He jumped straight in, ready to drag her to safety. But the young woman refused to listen and even bit Mike in the struggle. Just then, a shark exploded out of the water and swallowed her whole in a single bite. The scene descended into chaos. Panicked bystanders tumbled into the water one after another, becoming easy prey. In a matter of minutes, dozens were dead. Rather than face the disaster head-on, the mayor pinned all the blame on the police chief. She ordered him off the case and handed everything over to the military. In her mind, it was just a shark, nothing that could cause any real damage. What she didn't realize was that the truth was far more dangerous than she'd imagined. While cleaning up after the incident, the police killed the smaller shark and brought it back to the lab. Sophia took a scalpel to its belly and made a shocking discovery. Even though this shark was only 2 months old, its body was already carrying multiple pups inside. Sophia figured these sharks might be capable of parthenogenesis, able to reproduce and create new life without a mate. If that was true, France was staring down a catastrophe. To head it off, the police decided they couldn't wait any longer. They quietly launched an operation to take the man-eating shark out for good. They headed back down into the catacombs, placed sonar equipment on the riverbed, and tried to use sound to lure the shark out. A minute later, they cracked open flares. But what they saw next stopped everyone cold. What came at them wasn't one shark. It was a massive swarm of juvenile sharks, hundreds of them. Meanwhile, the Olympic events were officially kicking off, and huge crowds lined both banks of the Seine. The mayor stood in front of the cameras looking triumphant, giving speech after speech to the media while deliberately steering clear of any mention of sharks. She had already deployed the military to handle security on site. As far as she was concerned, taking out a single shark was no big deal. A single bullet would do the job. The moment she gave the signal, the athletes dove into the river and the race was on. But none of them had any idea that hundreds of deadly sharks were lurking just beneath the calm surface. Halfway through the race, the slower swimmers started vanishing from the water one by one. The crowd was so wrapped up in the race that nobody noticed anything strange. It wasn't until a spectator on the bank sensed something off that people finally started looking at the water. A massive fin was cutting back and forth just below the surface. A second later, a huge shark burst out of the water, snatched an athlete in its jaws, and dragged him under. That's when the screams started. Soldiers sped to the scene in speedboats and immediately opened fire on the water. At the same time, snipers on the banks joined in, but everyone had overlooked one crucial detail. There were still unexploded shells buried in the riverbed. Spooked by the gunfire, the sharks bolted for deep water, and the powerful currents they kicked up stirred the old shells right off the bottom. The blast shattered the calm along the banks in an instant. Massive waves rolled up out of the water and crashed toward shore like a flood. The situation spiraled out of control, and countless people were swept into the river by the surge. Once the chaos finally settled and the water grew still again, the once beautiful Seine was left in ruins, unrecognizable from what it had been before.